The biggest challenge, the biggest problem that the RV industry and the RV community is running into, that's not talked about. I'm talking about no one has even like really remotely discussed this at length, has to deal with trucks. Let me explain. So we've seen a big influx of folks with lighter duty trucks that are entering into the RV market looking to either tow a travel trailer, a fifth wheel, but more specifically, truck campers and getting into the overland lifestyle. We're starting to see folks with more Toyota Tacomas, Nissan Frontiers, Ford Rangers, you know, the Colorado, the Canyon, smaller Ford F 150, smaller half ton trucks. We're seeing a big influx of these folks, and they want to put a truck camper in the bed of the truck. The hardest part is the mainstream manufacturers like Palomino RV, Host, Arctic Fox, Northern Light. A bunch of these manufacturers that are more mainstream really need a bigger vehicle. They need that 3/4 ton truck or even a 1 ton plus dually to put it in the bed of the truck, specifically and especially if you want a bathroom, a generator, and all kinds of options on it, right? Especially if you want slide outs and pop outs. But the companies that actually are not the mainstream that actually build this kind of camper for those more Toyota Tacoma off-road overland guys, they don't overstock their dealers with a bunch of product. And a lot of times, most of them are actually factory direct. Now, we have a company here at Norris RV that actually sells factory direct through the dealership, and that's Scout. And a lot of times, what I'll do is I'll get a phone call that goes, "Hey, man, you know, I got to see all 8 floor plans before I can make a decision." And I've seen it where we've taken 5 or 6 of them down to a show because we actually have all the demos all at once. And they go, "Okay, I want to buy the one right here then." It doesn't work that way. So, one of the biggest challenges we're going to run into is the way the business model is set up for a lot of these camper companies is keep the overhead low so you don't have to charge 50 grand, 60 grand for a high quality camper. Now, it might be 25, 35, 38, 37, 40 grand, but imagine if you had to stock this stuff on a dealership lot, it would cost you more money. So the goal is to keep the overhead low, but at the same time, try to keep the quality high. So if you mass produce these things at a monster level and it fails at the dealership lot, you got dealers calling you going, "Hey man, I need a discount to get rid of this. Hey man, uh, like this Tuk Tut from Scout, we've had it for 600 days and can't get rid of it." Well, if you make it factory direct, a niche market type of deal, and you keep one dealer in every section of the country, one in Nevada, one in Northern California, one in Montana, one in Florida, if you only have 50 to 55 locations that service this unit, it keeps the overhead down, which keeps the cost down, but also keeps the quality up. Now, I'm not saying they're cheap, guys, because especially Scout, it's not a cheap product. Okay. It's not cheaply built, it's not cheaply made, and it's not like it's a $10,000 camper. Okay. Because I know a lot of you folks will bitch and complain in the comment section. I know you will. Oh, they want too much money for that stuff. I mean, I could go buy a used diesel pusher with 40 foot with 5 pop outs and blah 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 for the same amount of money as that little tiny camper. Well, I understand that, but you aren't buying a truck camper. Let's face it, the folks that are buying this are in a different world than the guy buying a 45-foot Beaver motorhome that was built in 1999. You know, it's like every time I see that comment, it's like I'm seeing John Cena going, "You can't see me. You can't see me." I mean, just craziness, right? Okay, getting back on track. So, what I always tell folks is if you're lucky enough to see one of the products, by any of these niche manufacturers like Scout. And there's a couple of them out there. It's not like Scout's the only one in the game, right? If you're lucky enough to see one of them, you should be able to make that factory order without a problem. And the reason why I say that is because not much changes. Now, right now, we're sitting in the Scout Olympic hard side. Not much changes between this and the pop up. Not much changes between this and the Yoho, this and the Kenai. Now, what I would say is if you can only go to the Tuk Tut, you might want to see that in person because that's pretty tiny. Okay. But when you're looking at the Yoho, the Olympic, and the Kenai as an example, not a lot changes between the three of them. They get bigger, they need a bigger truck, but not a lot changes. You get more headroom and less ability to put a pop up tent on the pop up. So the thing that changes really is the options, the price, and the weight. So if you're looking for the Yoho as an example, and this goes with any manufacturer at this level, okay? If you got, I can't remember the names of all of them, but I'm giving you an example. So if you're looking at the Yoho because it fits your Toyota Tacoma perfectly, because that's what it's built for, 5 foot better, bigger. You know, you got to have, you want to have under 900 pounds of payload. When you step into the Olympic, you get a very good sense of what you're going to get into with the Yoho. And you make your factory order. The problem with this niche is that you're 12 weeks away from getting your order. So you have, if you want it by spring of 2026, you got to order it before January 10th. And there's a lot of complaining about that. I've had nothing but complaints from people that walk on the lot and look at the Olympic and they go, well, I want to negotiate the price. There is no negotiation. It's factory direct. The markup stays the same. You're going to pay the same here as you're going to pay in Florida, as you're going to pay in Texas. The only difference is in Texas, you're going to pay a little more money in shipping. That's it. There's no negotiating off the price unless Scout wants to offer a rebate to try to drum up some business. I've seen them do that before. They don't discount it thousands of dollars. They offer $500 here, a free option there, $250 there. They don't offer you thousands of dollars off and mark up a sticker price like a Forest River product or a Keystone or a Brinkley or a Grand Design. There isn't the markup that you see in other manufacturers. And that goes across the board for all the folks in this niche, in this level. So there has to be some kind of, how do I put this? You have to really look at the price point you want to pay. Now, the good news about a company like Scout is the way you can decrease the price is order less options and add the stuff yourself as you go. Maybe you don't need the diesel heater. Maybe you don't need the stovetop. Maybe you don't need the cassette toilet. Maybe there's things you don't need that you could save the money on. Plain and simple fact. Now, I foresee 3 issues that are going to come up in 2026, and it's really going to be tough on companies like Scout. I think the first thing that's going to come up is nobody's going to want to actually order a product until their tax returns are done. Let's face it, a guy that wants to pay cash for a camper and there's no, give me no tax benefit for him or her. And so at that point, they're like, well, let me see what my tax exposure is. And then I'll decide if I want to buy the toy this year. And then you make the decision, okay, hey, my taxes are done at the end of February. Everything looks good. I don't owe the IRS or my state government really any money if you have a state income tax. And my exposure is really low. Let's take a trip in May. And then you start shopping. You got a nice Ford Raptor maybe you like, or maybe you got a nice, Frontier that you enjoy, Honda Ridgeline, whatever it is. And you go, I don't want to tow a travel trailer, just rather put a camper in the shell and let's go. So you start looking around and you find out, oh crap, I can't take a trip in May. So you're like, screw it, I'll do it next year. And you just delay it and delay it and delay it, because the one thing I have found about the RV industry, and this is something I've been in for over 15 years, this is a very emotional purchase. This is not a logical purchase. Very emotional purchase. Okay. And that emotional purchase has to be done within a timeline of what you want to be at. It's like me sitting there at the end of March, all my taxes done, and I'm like, you know what? I want to take a vacation to Disney World. And Disney World says, hey, we're booked until 2028. You want to make that reservation? You're like, nah, man, I'm going to go figure out something else to do. That's the kind of purchase any RV really is. And, it's one of the reasons I was talking to somebody in Indiana the other day. And this person, very, we'll say, at the top of the food chain of the RV manufacturing, RV parts, RV financing world. Okay. Very like top tier person. Like, it's hard to get above that. And when I was talking to this person, one of the number one things I told them was, I get why some folks like Cherokee overbuild their travel trailer line. They'll fill their yards up in Oregon and Indiana just full of stuff with no dealer orders, with fake orders. They've done it for years, but they always end up cleaning up their yard by the end of the year. And one of the biggest reasons why is because they know it's an emotional purchase. And when a dealer calls and says, hey, do you have any more 26 DBH wolf pups or gray wolves? Yep, I got 9 in the yard right now for it. Because they know the pendulum swing. I give John Quake a lot of crap. He runs Cherokee. I give him a lot of crap because just, I don't like the business model he's got. But I understand it, right? I understand why. Because you got to be able to pounce when the water's boiling hot. You could be dead and not sell anything at your label for 2 months. Everybody gets their tax returns. Everybody heads to the dealership lot ready to buy. And you sell out in a week at the dealer and you're like, oh my God, I need more. And most of the manufacturers are like, well, it's 8 to 12 weeks before we can get you another one. While Cherokee's like, I got like 75 of them in the yard. Start taking deposits. And that's why that division of Forest River has grown significantly over the last 5 or 6 years. Because they have product to sell. Even though I don't like the business model of it, I understand it. So one of the things that there has to be patience from these light duty truck owners and these half-ton truck owners that want a truck camper. You have to be patient and understand you got to plan months ahead of time. You got to rush your research. If you want, I've been telling people this for a long time, since October. If you want a Scout camper, you got to get the order in before the end of the year if you want it at the beginning of spring. Oh, no. We're not done doing our research. We'll just come and buy that